Hey, what's up, young jerks? Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, jerks. Right on time, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Big week this week in court for Karen Reed. Week one done of the retrial. There's a lot to talk about. Carrie Roberts. There's also the trip today to 34 Fairview. There's the text. There's the videos. There's upcoming witnesses. There's a lot to talk about tonight. And we've got a great guest. Very happy to have him back on the show. This is going to be his third time. I think we're doing the simulcast is usually how we do it. Yes, we're on his channel and our channel tonight. He's very popular. You've probably seen him, watched him, whether on this channel or his own channel. A lot of people are loving him right now. He's been heavily covering the Karen Reed trial, going through all the witness testimony from the first trial and now the second trial. He's a criminal defense attorney. He's got major military experience. He's a great guy. He's about justice. That's what I like about him. Doesn't promote himself a lot. Lets me promote him. So I definitely hope you follow him and his channel tonight. If you haven't already, definitely got to be following him and giving him some love. And if you're watching on his channel, make sure you like, subscribe, share it, all the good stuff. Let's bring him up tonight. We're very happy to have him back on the show. Attorney Carl Steinbeck. Welcome back to the show, Carl.
Hi, Mike. Good evening. Glad to
Very
be
pumped
here.
for this. Yeah, people are they've been all over me like for the last couple weeks. Like, when are you gonna have Carl back on? When are you gonna have Carl? You've been like tearing it up. Like, I've been seeing some of your videos and they're getting shared in all the social media, world for Karen Reed, like all the groups. Tell us what's been going on your channel since the last time you've been here.
Well, I'm just trying to cover the details, finer details of the case. I always try to look at it from the eyes of me having done a lot of violent crime cases, both as a prosecutor and defense attorney. And so I think a lot of the viewers, they don't understand really how seasoned attorneys look at this stuff. And so I'm trying to bring that kind of angle to it. So I'm very much into strategy, tactics, and looking at agendas that are going on for the prosecution and defense. And so having that kind of real analytical type assessment is what I try to convey to the audience. And so I try to talk to my audience sort of like I'm talking like they're lawyers almost, but I don't try to over talk it as in all legalese type of talk as well. So, but anyway, it's just very, very much something that is it's hard to stomach this because it's such a disgrace to the legal profession to see what's going on in the courtroom there in Denham.
So tell us, for some people that don't know, or maybe even people who've been watching your channel that don't know about your background, because I know you don't like to toot your horn too much, but I think you should. So tell us about your background, because you've got quite an extensive background before we get into this, Karen Reed. Tell us about who Carl Steinbeck is, your experience, your past life here.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of like just wound up going to law school. I didn't even want to be a lawyer when I went to law school. I just wanted to have another degree. I had a bachelor's in undergrad for business finance, and I didn't really feel like I learned a whole lot in undergrad. So I thought, well, I want to be a businessman, and I want to be a good business owner that treats my employees well. And because I'd done some work at one of the world's largest beef processing plants in the Midwest, and I saw the way that things were running and the way people were treated. So I thought, I want to be a leader someday and make things better. And so I thought maybe going to law school would be a way to get some other credential. I didn't even want to pass the bar exam, be a lawyer when I first went to law school. But my first job after my first year of law school, I was interning with a federal judge in Dallas. And then after that, my second year, I was a part-time paid clerk for a federal magistrate there in the town I was going to law school at in Iowa. And then I wound up just doing one internship after another, clerkships and internships. I even worked for the Senate Judiciary Committee there in Washington, D.C. my last summer. And so I got a lot of exposure to law, and I sort of thought, oh, hey, maybe I should be a lawyer. And so I wound up, when they came on campus, I wound up interviewing with the Army Judge Advocate General Corps. And so I decided to go that route. I had like 5 or 6 other buddies from my law school class go in. And so it was like one of the probably the best thing I could have done because I always had an interest in the military, and it was really a great experience. And so I got to rotate between different jobs, and I started out in Fort Hood, which is one of the biggest jurisdictions for doing court martials. And in court martials, we have the same rules of evidence. Everything's almost exactly like a civilian trial, except you have military members on the panel, and then those kind of we call them juries. Juries we call panels there, and in the military, it's very much political, where you have the members of the panel are handpicked by the general of the base usually, and they may have multiple generals that pick their own panels depending on what their unit is. But basically, you're talking about usually it's a two-star general that picks the jury. So you're talking about people that are handpicked by the guy that's trying to enforce good order and discipline. And so you can have people that are looking to, instill discipline, and so they want to get a conviction. And so you got to really be good at voir dire to pick which ones you want to have kicked off. And so you gotta you gotta know how to do it the right way, and because they also don't want to be kicked off, and so you got to play this really strategic game of how do you word things and phrase things the right way, and how do you deal with the judge that's maybe trying to control things and keep them on there. So you're dealing with judges trying to control justice a lot, and so it can be sort of like a quasi rigged system as well. And so I got to really get my feet up to speed really quickly and in the politics of criminal law. And that's one of the things I brought onto my channel, saying, look, criminal law is highly political, especially in the military. And so anyway, I moved around, different places in the country, been overseas to Italy, also worked different interagency jobs. I've worked in Guantanamo Bay, dealing with the detainee issues there. I've worked at the headquarters of the State Department, right down the hall from the two secretaries of state we had at the time I was there, both Condoleezza Rice as well as Hillary Clinton. And I was working on war crimes issues there. And so anyway, I got to work a lot of different issues. Got to work over in Italy and Germany as well, doing criminal work. And so I've seen a lot of stuff, seen a lot of cover-ups, seen a lot of political stuff, and I've seen a lot of people try to be railroaded. And so it's sort of like I sort of specialize, I would say, in helping fight for people being railroaded. And so it's anyway, coming into this case here, it really boils my blood to see the way Karen and her team are being treated. And so it's hard to watch, but I feel like I do have the kind of experience to speak out about this kind of stuff and say how wrong it is. And I think, one of the things I'm always hitting on is the constitutional aspects of cases. And I think a lot of prosecutors lose focus that what their role is to do justice, not to get a conviction. And I don't see that being the case here at all with Karen Reed. And not only that, but then you have a judge that's just blocking the defense from just doing routine admissible things in court, and they have constitutional significant ramifications. And it's like, can the judge really be that clueless, or is there an agenda from the judge to make sure Karen's convicted? And it really looks like there's an agenda of the judge to get Karen convicted, because she really can't be that clueless on the Constitution. So anyway, those are the kind of things I talk about in a nutshell. But I did retire in 2020, and so I do have my own private practice here in San Antonio. And so anyway, I cover this case, and mostly I've been covering for the last little over 2 years now, a case out of Florida, the Adelson case, which is a murder case down there where a doctor, dentist type family, and a lawyer in their family as well committed a murder against a FSU law professor. So anyway, my brother got me roped into this, and so I'm doing this now. He set me up on this live stream and whatnot, and I also have my wife, who's a lawyer. I confer with her a lot. She's way smarter than I am, and so anyway, so with that, I try to just tell it like it is, and so that's it in a nutshell, I guess.
Good that you have the wife who's way smarter than you. So it sounds like my house. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm not married, but I've been with the same woman for 20 years. So it's like we're married, and she is way smarter than me. Thank God.
there you go.
I wonder, I hope she was listening to that, because I'll get some brownie points for admitting it. Um, so anyways, you mentioned the judge quite a few times in this opening, and like a controlling. When you say controlling judge, people in the chat and myself like reacted to that because that's what it feels like a lot with Judge Beverly Cannone. Like she's over controlling. How can that be dealt with? Like, because it seems like this defense has tried everything and they're just kind of bullied by her now. There's not much they can do because I feel like anytime they try anything back at her, she punishes them even more. So, what can they do? Like, what are the tips for that you picked up for someone who's a over controlling judge?
Well, I do think that from what I'm seeing, their mannerisms in the courtroom are a lot different than they were in the first trial. Granted, we have a new attorney, Alessi, that's been advocating as well, and they come there now with much more robust, more tone, and they're much more aggressive in advocating stuff. I mean, look at the way Alessi stood up to her. You got to stand up to judges that run roughshod over you. Okay, you need to. If you're worried about, oh, hey, the judge is going to get even madder at me, you gotta like say it like it is. Where this, I'm speaking to the Court of Appeals. You're creating reversible error. This is manifest injustice. It's violating of the constitutional rights of Karen Reed. You got to call the judge out on it. If you're afraid, I tell people, if you're afraid to stand up to a judge, you should never be a trial attorney. You should never be a prosecutor. You should never be a defense attorney, especially not a defense attorney, because you also can run into certain situations where you do have prosecutors. They don't care one lick about justice. They don't care one lick about whether they convict an innocent person or not. It's all about stats to them. They want to get convictions. They want to get their numbers up. They want to be able to say they did justice, and they normally have some idea. I would think though that you're risking getting this thing busted on appeal, but in this particular case here, it's like, especially why I don't like this Brennan guy as a prosecutor. You don't hire somebody just to gun one particular citizen down in your community. I mean, that's it, to me, in and of itself. It just runs afoul of the Constitution because you're basically targeting somebody. And so you're going to spend all this money just to target one person. Think about it, because he has no incentive to keep this thing from being busted on appeal, right? He'll be gone because this thing will be busted on appeal at some level, somewhere down the line, if Karen Reed gets convicted of anything. There's so many constitutional violations that have happened, and that's what you have. You have like a cowboy type mentality. It's like, hey, just round them up, string them up, and go ahead, get this person sent to prison, and they can walk away, he'll probably get $500,000 by the time it's all said and done, or more. And there's probably, like it is in so many circles, there's political paybacks and rewards to get for doing something like this. So all the rewards and kickbacks happen if he gets a conviction, right? So this a whole outrage in this dog and pony show. They talk about, we're saying, when Morrissey is announcing, like, well, we're hiring him to make sure she gets a fair trial. That's absolute garbage talk. All right, what they're doing is they want somebody like him because they know he's ruthless, and there's nothing he won't do to get her convicted. And if you got a judge that's not stopping him in any of this unconstitutional stuff, then it's really a absolute bastardization of the criminal justice system. And the only thing you really can do is, unless they're going to file some kind of writ to force the judge to do something on some kind of ruling, there's nothing in the midst of the trial you can really do to throw a lifeline out there to have another judge or higher authority step in. And so the thing I can tell folks, that the number one, I guess, positive benefit of this is this process of seeing this railroad job happening right before our very eyes, is that it gives people a wake-up call, because they think this could only happen in some other third world banana republic type thing, right? So here, this is happening in America. I mean, up there in Massachusetts, that's one of the founding colonies. And I mean, the founding fathers, they overthrew this kind of tyranny, and you couldn't call a defense witness in the old type of the British system, where we were just subjects. We weren't citizens. We were subjects, right? So Karen is treated like a subject of some tyrannical type system, and it's just such a disgrace and outrage. So that's how I try to keep my sanity in the whole thing. It's like, look, at least people are seeing this thing for what it is, And it can happen in a neighborhood near you if you don't elect the right people to administer justice in your community.
Wild. And the thing too, you mentioned Brennan and he's being paid. I just had the DA candidate that's running against Michael Morrissey on for the second time this week, and she was remarking about how much the money that's been spent on this and allocated to his salary or whatever you're calling it, his stipend, his fee, and it's such like a large part of the budget for them that they're going to be like very short on covering other cases and hiring experts and all that other stuff,
Right.
that they're spending so much on this case. I mean, that shows, like, why do you think they're doing that? That they would put so much into this one case where
Well,
it
it's
doesn't seem like a winner.
it's personal. If you have people that are politically connected, they're going to be protected. That's what it comes down to. And so Karen's not politically connected. She comes from a very, very, very much a successful family. Her dad's recently retired as a dean at the university there, the Bentley University, and so she comes from a very, very, very much a family that contributes to society, and she knows good values. She knows how to not be a mooch off society. She's got significant medical problems, and something like that. If you get caught up, and you might think, well, wealthy people are untouchable to the criminal justice system. Well, but that's generally can be true, but unless you get caught up with people that are involving cops, and a cop happens to be someone that gets killed and murdered, and then it's like, oh, and then it's like, well, you think you're standing in the community. She's not politically connected, right? So cops are more politically connected. They work with the DA's office. The DA's office is very political. Just look how Morrissey got into office. He got into office as like a almost like in his 40s, I think it was. He never even tried a case. He was a legislator, went to law school late in life, and then just went from going to the legislature to becoming a DA. So he didn't know anything about criminal law. And so I think that helps politicize the office even more. So they're trying to settle political scores, and everything about this Karen Reed case reeks of it's personal. It's personal, and somebody's looking. They're trying to protect somebody, and that's why Karen. They must try to save face with Karen and bring her down any which way they can, and that's why they're not worried about a conviction getting reversed on appeal, because they can always say, well, you know what, the jury got it right, the judge got her off on a technicality, and we can try her again. And they're just they sort of have this short-sighted thinking. It's very tactical, not really long-term strategic, because long-term strategy-wise, I don't see how they could ever, even if they try her again, if there's another hung jury, I just don't see how they're ever going to get her convicted on especially second degree murder. And so when you have the kind of evidence that's been coming out, and you got the kind of big big scores the defense has had against the prosecution and witnesses so far, I mean, I think that this trend will continue, and so you can see that Brennan knows he's got a weak case, so he's scrambling even more to deprive her of constitutional rights. Because I guess can tell you, Mike, that normally a prosecutor's like, yeah, hey, if they're really experienced and you got a good case, like, okay, yeah, defense, bring on your game, put your best game forward, bring on whatever experts you want. I can just gun them down, I can discredit them because I'm a good trial attorney. I know what I'm doing. I know I got the truth on my side. You don't, and it's like, let's have a good fight in the courtroom, right? But here it's like they're doing everything they can to cut off the defense from even calling
Defense,
routine
yeah.
experts, right?
Yeah, it's like you can't have a defense at all.
No.
That's his whole
So they're
game as a
playing
prosecutor.
dirty. The judge isn't blocking that from happening. The judge is actually looking for dirt to come up with, and that's what I think is happening with the ARCA witnesses. She's looking for some technicality that she can say, these guys aren't going to testify at all. You deceived this court. You acted in collusion with the defense attorneys, and so therefore I'm not going to have this kind of manifest injustice happen to the prosecution in my courtroom. And so that's what I think she's gunning for, and so that's going to be something that I think is one of the things that they look at on appeal as abuse of discretion, they call it, for the trial judge. And I mean, she's abused discretion almost every day in that courtroom that could revert to, reversible error. And so, but like I say, it's like, you think she would care if someone like Brendan doesn't care because he's just trying to like make his next stepping stone from this case forward. And so, but why would a judge do this? So, but then you look at the connections between Morrissey and the judge, and so there you realize that, wait a minute, is he the one that really got her
How
behind
crazy.
getting this judgeship?
Yeah.
So on his most um, most newsworthy case of all time, she's she's feeling like she owes him one. So the appearances, at least, of that, right? So I've just never seen a judge make this many bad rulings that
No,
that are just throwing a case, basically.
it's why it's just it's hard to describe. Like I was that DA candidate is like a full-time attorney. She hasn't been watching the trial. So I was trying to explain some of the stuff that's going on. She almost I could tell she didn't want to believe me. And it was just like, you got to see it to believe it. Speaking of which, the DA candidate versus Morrissey, one of the things she's pledged not to do is to take campaign contributions if she's elected from her employees. Michael Morrissey does that on a regular basis. A lot of these state troopers we know have made Adam Lally has made contributions to Michael Morrissey. Is that something you see? I know you've practiced in different states. I know you've probably run into different district attorneys. Are they elected in other states? Do they take contributions from their employees, or is that just a Massachusetts thing?
Well, I think that's probably most places that do have elected district attorneys' offices or county attorneys' offices, depending what state you're in. They call them different things, but yeah, that would be a honorable thing to do. Not asking for any money from your employees to contribute to your campaign war chest, and so that I think is the right move to make. But you can see, like, even in Texas, if you're going before a judge here, you could give a big check to his campaign or her campaign, and that can maybe have an effect on your outcome of your case. So that's what I'm saying. Cases can be, and that's civil cases as well. So there can be a lot of politics like that. But what we have is judges here are elected. They're not really entrenched for life like other states where they're not elected, and maybe they only have an election to retain them. In other words, to kick them out of office. So most people, like, they don't know what bad rulings a judge makes and whether they should be booted or not. And so they pretty much can be insulated from any kind of public correction of acting like Judge Cannoni. So, but and here in Texas, of course, you run for election as a district attorney as well as a judge, and so there is some, like, I guess, some kind of protection that way, in the sense that if you become too political and you're just siding with one particular party or one particular, if you're more too pro defense and whatnot, then you'll have maybe somebody running against you from inside your own office. So those kind of checks and balances, at least you do have an opportunity for turnover and for the people to have much more greater say in things. And but you can still have, things run amok, and you can have bad judges here, just like you can have bad prosecutors and whatnot.
Going to be next year. If Michael Morrissey decides to run for reelection, it's gonna be interesting to see how that turns out for him. I don't know how he can do campaign events. We'll see what happens there.
Well, let me
Uh,
just say this, though. Keep in mind, somebody in his position, you don't ever see him in the courtroom. They're basically a politician, right?
yes.
They're running an office or managing an office. They'll make public statements once in a while, not like he made one on this case, but it's it's very much a political job where you're just sort of a manager and you don't even have to be good at trying cases. And so that's why I think it's him being a politician coming to this job made it even much more of a political position.
Yeah, that makes sense. Totally evident too. That's what he is. He's a politician. I don't think of Michael Morris as anything else but hack politician. Like he's not a lawyer. He's not. Let's talk about what's been going on in the courthouse because Carrie Roberts. I did a show last night on her, and it just blew it was like unannounced, one of those spontaneous shows you don't know if anyone's going to be watching, and everyone was all over it because it was Carrie Roberts. Everyone, I was on talk radio today. Almost all the questions on WRKO were about Carrie Roberts. Um, it's become a big thing. Her testimony. What did you think about Carrie Roberts on the stand, and what did you think about Alan Jackson? What do you think about it all? Jennifer McCabe, her influence.
Yeah, that I think is the number one takeaway that I have, that I think the jury will pick up on, and I think the defense will hit on this as well, is it's the amount of influence Jen McCabe has on this case. I think that's the biggest takeaway from her. And so we got from her that she was testifying as if Karen said something and that she overheard it firsthand. Instead, it was a timeline that Jen created, and then it got planted in her mind as this happened. And I mean, what kind of witness creates a timeline, you know? And then they try to blame it on Peggy O'Keefe. It's like, oh, you guys need to do a time. Oh yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Well, I don't believe that for a second. And so it's something that the main critical witness the defense can drive home their whole theory of what happened that night is through Jen McCabe. And that 911 call, that is golden. That really sets the whole scene for something is really going on behind the scenes that the prosecution cannot and will not even address.
You broke down that 911 call. I've heard about that too on social media. Tell us what you found, like when you were listening to that. What were your kind of take on it?
Well, when I go through a criminal case like this one, when I first started listening to it, was I just keep an open mind. I don't want to like have the mistake of like thinking, oh, this is what it really happened, and you're presumed guilty, or because I've done criminal defense, I don't come in there thinking, oh, I presume they're innocent. I just have an open mind because I've done both sides so many times, rotating through my military career. I've also been a civilian uh, criminal district attorney in Texas. I've also been a defense attorney for many years, both in private practice. I've also been a public defender for 4 years. So I feel like I have a balanced approach to looking at stuff, and nothing really can surprise me. And I know how to unturn every stone. If you really want to be a good trial attorney, you got to unturn every stone. And what you see a lot is people just don't go into enough details. They don't work their case enough. They don't know the law good enough. They're not aggressive enough in court. And so you can have a lot of situations happen where justice doesn't happen in the courtroom because you don't have the right attorneys dealing with the case. And so here in this particular case, I think her defense team, Karen's defense team, is doing a great job. I think they come across as people that have credibility before the jury. I don't see that at all with Hank Brennan. I think he not only does not have credibility in front of them, but I think he has a personality that's not trustworthy and doesn't come across as likable. So I think likability of attorneys is huge for jurors. I believe always that jurors have one attorney or one side that they believe knows it, or both. I should say both attorneys on both sides know what the truth is, and one of them's trying to hide it, and the other one's trying to reveal it. So I think that in this particular case, when you look at things like the 911 call, just with an open mind, if you really, when you start hearing the rest of the stuff about what Jen McCabe says outside that phone call, i.e., when she says, "I love John," she brought that up on direct, not on cross. She brought up on direct, like she wanted to blurt that out in the courtroom. And guess what? Then you listen to the 911 tape, and it's just like this is not sounding like any urgency whatsoever. You can't even say his name. You can't even say he's a Boston police officer. You can't say, hey, he's about to die. You never ask, how soon you get an ambulance here? How soon are they coming? You got to hurry up. You don't run up the house. The house is completely dark. That's the other thing. This house, after they just had a party, is completely dark. It looks like there's not even a night light on in that house. It's like somebody's cut off the power. You know, it looks like that house in Patriot Games. I don't know if you remember that movie, but anyway, it's like a haunted ghost house or something there. It's completely dark. And so for her not to even check on her sister who lives there and her brother-in-law who lives there, and their windows are right overlooking that whole scene right out there where John O'Keefe was laying, and where all these lights are flashing and sounds of things from Karen crying out
Dog is
things,
probably barking
and the
if the
dog.
dog's there.
There's no. Where's the dog? And
Where's
I think
Chloe?
maybe.
Where's Chloe?
Yeah. Well, I think maybe they want to whisk the dog away
Oh,
because
definitely.
they're trying to. If the dog's barking, that's drawing attention to. Hey, cops, maybe you better look in the house.
Yeah.
So I think they just wanted to look like it's a boarded up, abandoned house.
We're
Don't
sleeping.
come
We're not
here.
waking up. Yeah.
And it worked. I mean, it really worked. And so, and think about it, how Jen doesn't ever mention that this is outside of a Boston police officer's house. Her brother-in-law doesn't mention his name. And so you have all the way she's actually whispering also.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
The calm whispering and there's a
right.
man. He's down in the snow.
It's like
And
she was stalling to prevent the police from showing up too soon and prevent the ambulance and the EMT folks from showing up too
wow.
soon,
I didn't
right?
even think of that. That's such a
So
good point.
so
Wow.
that's what I gather from that. I mean,
Yeah.
you'd be I mean, I'm sounding more excited
I'd be
about it right now
frantic.
here
Yeah,
on this.
I'd be hurry up, hurry up. I'd do that for a stranger. You know what I mean? If
Right,
they found just a guy like even a whole homeless person just found
right,
in front of my house, like I'd be doing that for them, even if
right,
I knew them, it'd be a totally different game.
right. I mean, you'd be asking, hey, we're trying to do CPR, this is what's going on. You'd be describing, but the thing is, think about it this way. If she would have said all that, you know what would have happened? The response would have gone through the roof. They would have like been asking her a whole lot of questions. And if she would have told the truth, what's really going on there with John, they would ask her a lot more questions. I mean, this sounds like this 911 dispatcher was sort of halfway asleep at the switch. But start mentioning those. She could probably tell that he's not really that inquisitive himself. So you start feeding him this kind of information, get him riled up, and tell him these kind of details. And then, they're also trained in how to advise people to do CPR. And I understand that Carrie would have known how to do that, and also Jen, but Jen's not offering any CPR, giving any guidance. Jen's also talking about, think about the inconsistency. And this is what I look for, is how much the attorneys for the prosecution don't try to bring out certain things, or do bring out certain things to put a spin on them. Like, look at when I noticed when Carrie Roberts testified, do you realize it was never once brought out whether John O'Keefe was laying on his stomach face down or laying on his back? That was conveniently avoided by the prosecution. Why is that? Because there's a discrepancy between what Jen says on the 911 call, saying we flipped him over, and Carrie saying we showed up and he was on his back and they had to brush snow off his face. So you assume from what Carrie said that he was laying on his back, but that's not been specifically clarified, right? Because even if they flipped him over, they could have to brush some snow off his face, theoretically. So those are kind of things that I noticed that Brennan is doing. That's like, he knows how to steer away from things that make his case look bad. But then he's also doing things that he thinks he's trying to look slick doing it, but he's sort of out slicking himself. Like just in trial one, how they brought up the fact that Karen never took her shoes off right after 5 a.m. The other two, Carrie brought up this couple days ago that it took them 2 minutes to get their boots off that had all the snow in them, because it was a big house rule that, John O'Keefe will not let you come in the house without taking your shoes off, right? And then they're making it look like, why would they bring it out as a prosecutor unless they want to try to argue later? It's like, she knew he was a goner. She didn't care about his house rules. She's like, I'm getting back at that. I'm getting back at him because he was about to dump me, kind of thing. That's the kind of spin they're going to put on it. So what I brought up last night on the live stream I did was that this shows the complete opposite, which is that she was frantic trying to find John. Who cares about whether you have snow boots
She
on or
was out of
not?
her mind. I
You're
mean,
running
she
through the
was.
house, and why would you go back to the house you just
Yeah.
came from? Granted, she said she was, under the influence of alcohol, but why would she go back on a house? Like, she can't tell that whether John is there or not. Where's his boots that he's wearing out that night? All they have to do is, hey, what boots was he wearing? Are they here? Or shoes? Are they here? No. Okay, he's not here, right? He'd have the same spot he always keeps his shoes or boots that he went out that night with. So it's just like, again, it's like a stall tactic to prevent um, Karen or law enforcement or medical care from going to 34 Fairview in the rapid fashion that should have happened otherwise.
Talk about 34 Fairview because that was the visit today. Um, I was on WRKO today, and Betterow was on Fox News. We basically said the same thing, that we felt like it was too early, that it wasn't fair to the defense to do this too early. But I think you have a different viewpoint. Um, and also, like, somebody else hit me up on this, and they wanted me to ask a question about this in terms of, would it be smart for the defense maybe to ask for a second visit when the witnesses are concluded?
Yeah, I mean, they could ask for that, but I think the judge would deny it because there's other things they could point out after the testimony happens that they don't want. They don't want, that's helpful to the defense. So, given the rulings of the judge, I don't think it's going to happen. They could ask for it. I've never seen that before, but I would say that I think it's not going to hurt the defense at all, and I think the jury's going to get a better idea before Albert testifies and before Jen McCabe testifies, where they really see how small of a street that is, and they see how close everything is in proximity. It's so close. The pictures don't do it justice. And so, not that I've been there myself, but different angles give you a whole different perspective on it, right? And so, from different angles I've seen, it's like, yeah, that really is a tiny front yard. It's a big backyard. They got some good distance on the sides of the house, but the front yard is not that much space. And so, when you also take into account what I've been saying, is like, I hope the defense brings out, is it normal for that house to be completely dark? I bet you, out of years that they've been living there, I bet you that's the only time that house has been completely dark, outside and inside, right? Most people leave a night light on, especially law enforcement. They say to deter thieves, you got to have some lights on, exterior lights, some interior lights. So you're going to have a house completely dark. And then think about it. Jen McCabe is busting in Brian and Nicole's bedroom, and he's got a loaded weapon, most likely on his nightstand there, and she's bursting in. I mean, you could have a bullet, come in there seconds later, and it's completely dark. There's no lights that are being turned on, and so it's just very much, everything's so suspicious about it that there's just, everywhere you look, there's reasonable doubt.
There's a reasonable doubt in this, because I feel like she's innocent. That's been my belief for a long time on this. They also have these text messages. They had all these. Guarino read all these text messages the other day from Karen and John back and forth. I thought it was nothing. I quoting Betterow, he calls it a nothing burger.
Hmm.
What did you think about these texts? To me, they just kind of humanized her and
Yep.
showed that she's a human like anyone else, and that her and John. It seemed like they cared about each other. It seemed like just normal BS that people go through with their spouses. It's not, reminds me of my family. Of what did you think?
I think this was I think this is something that Hank is again trying to outslick himself on, Hank Brennan, the prosecutor, because he's trying to use this as see, she was like very much assertive and calling him up, and he's trying to make it look like she's like going psycho on him, and she's just like, where are we at in the relationship and all this kind of stuff. And keep in mind, he was like stringing her along, wouldn't answer the calls. It looks like he was like not treating her very well, not treating her respectful, not treating her as a love interest. It's almost like he's like, it looks to a lot of folks, and I've seen comments on it on my channel, that it looks like he sort of was taking advantage of her. And I think the gold mine comment she made in the text was, she says, like, look, if you want to move on, or something to that effect, if you found somebody else, just let me know, just say the word and I'm out of here. You'll never hear from me again. So that neutralizes everything else Hank was trying to put a spin on this, and he'll try to put a spin on the arguments, is that
So adult too? Like, If
What?
I mean,
Yeah,
that just shows that she's not a psycho. She's not someone who's clingy, who's hanging on for dear life about John O'Keefe. She was like, "You're either gonna love me, we're gonna have
yep,
a relationship like adults, or let me know, because
right.
you know I can do something else. I don't have to spend my time chasing John O'Keefe around." I
Yeah,
mean,
what I felt from that is what I was worried about with Karen is that she comes across as too high society
yeah.
and too much of a wealthy, privileged class, and that could hurt her with jurors. Most of them would not be able to relate to that, and so it's like, oh, hey, we can take out the rich lady here, and sort of make it get payback because I don't get to live that kind of privileged life. So I sort of was worried about that, but I think what this really did from this text, and I thought the uh the trooper reading those was actually he actually did a fair job. I didn't feel like he was trying to like steer it one way or the other. He always called it John O'Keefe and then the defendant, but that's normal for any prosecution witness, especially a cop. And but I thought he just said it basically monotone. He didn't try to put it any kind of spin on it. So I thought he did a good job that way. And I think that it really, like you say, it humanized her and it made her likable. And I think it took away a lot of this thing where it's like, why would she in her position care about these kids that aren't John's? It seemed like she cared about them more than John did, right? She's actually spending alone time with them. She's taking them on trips with John. They went out to the Cape with John. I mean, she's really trying to invest in this as being like a family dynamic and not just casual dating and just, oh, these are your kids or not mine, or not even your kids, they're just your sister's kids, and I'm not going to get involved in this. And so I think it really made it look like she's got a big heart and she's not an elitist in any way.
One of their big fights is that she spoiled the kids. I mean,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
shows you that she was invested in them. She wanted to spoil them. I mean, I can't blame her. Those kids have been through a lot. So, you know, why shouldn't they get a little spoiled? You know what I mean? Like, they
yeah,
lost their parents. So, I mean, it definitely, I think, humanizes her, makes her look good,
right.
actually. I agree with you.
And I don't think she's doing it for show either. I don't think she's doing it to impress the kids and win them over, to manipulate John into going, well, the kids like you so much, so I guess I can still date you long term. But it just looked to me like he had zero interest in Karen as a long term permanent fixture in his life, and that's what Karen wanted. So they had a complete disconnect in relationship goals.
Which happens a lot. I mean, human nature. Not everyone wants the same thing.
Right. So I think
And
this
that
was great. I think the text messages were great. I think that helps set the scene. I think that also helps neutralize some of the things in the videotapes that maybe make Karen come across as aggressive, or maybe disconnected somewhat in what she's saying, where it makes it look like maybe she's talking too much about drinking or making some kind of incriminating statement or quasi incriminating statement. And so it's um it's also the I think these little clips. He's just trying to pepper the jury to get trying to a negative viewpoint of Karen, and so I think that the real Karen, it came through on those texts.
I do
So
too.
it's a good so it's a good
You,
thing. It's a good
yeah,
neutralizer.
you talked about the video too. Let's talk about the video, because I feel like that's another big talking point, bone of contention all over social media right now.
Yep.
A lot of us feel like she probably should have never done those media interviews. I felt like that throughout the whole thing. However, I get why she did. I totally get it. Personally, she's been attacked and trolled, and there's a campaign against her, and
Right.
it's on social media, and they've destroyed her, and her to speak her truth, especially when she's innocent. I get why she did it, but at the same time, now it's being used as evidence against her. Have you ever seen anything like this where they're playing little clips like that? I've never seen, like, usually it's just witnesses, not like I'm gonna play a 5 second clip here or 10 seconds. It's very strange. What do you think about the video? Is it helping the prosecution, or is it helping the defense? Should it even be allowed? What are your thoughts, Carl?
Well, I do think that there's some portions of there where it can come across like, oh, well, she sounds a little bit too sure of herself, too aggressive sounding in her voice or something like that. But you're sort of seeing Karen is a lively, energetic person, despite the fact she has some significant debilitating illness of MS. I mean, who with MS has that kind of energy? I don't know. I guess I don't know. I haven't been around somebody with MS, but I know it's a very debilitating type disease. And I mean, here she is, highly functioning as a powerful analyst working for Fidelity Investments, and I mean, she's totally self-sufficient. She's not relying on anybody. It comes across she's a very giving person, right? And so I think the humanity side of her can override any of the stuff that's coming out on the tapes. And so what I see strategically Brendan's doing is he's hoping that some of these things are going to come out and is this going to turn off the jury with her personality, right? And I think in the Northeast, people tend to be more outspoken. They're more direct. Um, they're more ability to say stuff loudly and not as they think they're more able to speak what's on their mind. That's my experience working with people from all over the country. Is that people in the Northeast, they're not going to be as phony about stuff, right? So I think that's one of the things that comes across for her now is that she's just very direct, and she does have a lot of frustration with the way she's been accused, and so she wants to come on, and she's just being herself. And so I would say as an attorney, I would not do that, or I'd have it very few things you can say. If you're going to be interviewed, I'd have it tightly controlled that way. So I mean, I'd say probably the one discrepancy that could they could play back that makes you go, I wonder why she said that was this whole issue in Alan Jackson's where with her both times when they say, well, who did this? And she says, we know who did this. And the other time in an interview, she says, we don't know who did this. So, that's controlled by the attorney, not her. So I hope the jury understands that that's like they don't know exactly for sure who did what, right? Nobody knows exactly who did what to get these injuries on John O'Keefe. There's likely the folks that are in the house are acting highly suspicious. It probably wasn't a female was strong enough to take out John O'Keefe. We know that there was a dog involved, and where was the closest dog to where John was found? Well, it was the one at 34 Fairview. So there's all these indicators and clues and highly suspicious behavior of the people in the house. So that's what they can focus on. So that my whole thing is, don't worry about trying to name who did the final death blows to John O'Keefe. Just bring all these reasonable doubt points up and say somebody most likely in the house is the one that took him out. It could have been so much as he slipped and fell and the dog started attacking him and they tried to get him off and then he was dying and they didn't want to have that on their hands. So they sort of hauled him out after a couple hours out to the curb. So it didn't start out as a malicious intent. I mean, that could be one of the theories, but any way you slice it and dice it, none of the way they behaved nor any of the forensic physical type of evidence supports that this car of hers is what led to John's death.
Agreed. Even though I agree with everything you said, because I saw the first jury, and I can't believe how they fell for things and the way some of the statements that they were revealed after about their deliberations.
Here, let me just add some of that though, Mike.
Okay,
I really think it's the foreman of that jury that made them, because I've seen this happen before, not in my jury, any juries I've had, but I've seen this in another case I'm thinking of where two people on the jury out of 12 completely, it was like the 12 Angry Men situation, but it was a completely joke of a case. The prosecution should have lost. Even the judge said that the prosecution should have lost. And these two guys made it out to be like, hey, you got somebody it was a female defendant on a DUI. These two guys made the jury think that she's a felon DUI because the defense attorney was from out of state and because they never brought up the fact that she doesn't have a criminal record. And those two factors alone, they were able to make the whole jury think she's an alcoholic with a long criminal record and hired the out of state or out of town attorney from 100 miles away because she knows she's guilty. I mean, and these guys weren't even law enforcement background type, right? And
Personalities.
so
Yeah.
they were able to hoodwink a jury that way. So I think just one guy that got 20 years as a cop or whatever it was could have easily told these jurors that's not the way it works, and he's sort of like an expert witness to the jurors that tells them, no, don't listen to anything defense tells you, right? So that, I think if they don't have a cop, that cop on this first trial, it would have been acquittal across the board.
I hope that's what happens. Upcoming witnesses. Who are you looking most forward to? Maybe a second time now.
Well, I tell you, the whole defense runs through mainly Jen McCabe, and everybody else is just a bonus. So Jen McCabe is going to help drive home all the points. She's got the most reasonable doubt points that can raise through her. And just like I say, the 911 call alone is should be an open and shut on this case. That something else happened there. And then you have that, the way she acted, then you have the dog bite arm marks on John. That right there tells you something else happened. I don't think anybody would reasonably believe that the tail light of a car could do that kind of damage on John O'Keefe. It makes no sense without even having any kind of medical expert or pathologist or forensic type biomechanical engineer testify. It's just common sense, Mike, that there's something more that meets the eye. And so if you don't understand what happened, that's reasonable doubt, and you got to quit. Plain and simple.
What do you think about ARCA? Because this is going to be a big thing on Monday. This ARCA voir dire. It's just, to me, it shouldn't even be happening. I'm afraid that this biased judge is going to block them from testifying. Like I just feel like she's going towards it. It just seems so obvious to me. What do you think about what's going to happen on Monday here?
I think it's a setup. Her and Brennan are trying to set him up, find him doing something wrong. I mean, just the fact that she's ordering a expert to turn over stuff that is such a spit in the face of the defense counsel, and you don't do that as a judge, to force somebody out of state to show up on short notice. I mean, she tried to have him show up today, and it's like they had a conflict in their schedule. So to interrupt even the jurors are going to have to take time out to see this. So I think that there's that's what she's gunning for. She's going to try to find something, and even if she doesn't find anything on ARCA, she could just say, well, Jackson, you and your team didn't disclose these texts. You hid these text messages. So I think that I think you've abused the discovery process, and so they're not testifying. So even though she knows that's reversible error, this will never fly in appeal as a rational decision by the court. It's critical, and I know I had a case one time that was busted on appeal because the prosecutor that was taking over for me, I had it teed up beautifully where they would have gotten a conviction. They in fact did get a conviction of 25 years, but you know what they didn't allow? The expert had a conflict, and so the prosecution said, "Well, we need to keep the trial date on schedule." So we got some out-of-state witnesses coming in. So we resist the trial date moving to the right a couple weeks to accommodate the defense expert. And guess what? That got busted on appeal by abuse of discretion. So just something like that, you can mess up a case as a prosecutor and as a judge. So they found abuse of discretion by the judge, and so it got reversed. And I don't ever know what happened to it, but they had a 25-year sentence in the bag, and this expert wouldn't have made a difference. It was such a rock solid case. And so anyway, I just see this kind of thing, and it's if they get excluded, it just reveals that much more. The judge has some kind of political favor she wants to settle with Morrissey, I would say.
Definitely come up on appeal. Another reason to appeal. Leah Baker says another Jen influence. Carrie added that Jen helped with CPR, but she had to admit it was only calling 911 and blankets from her SUV. Jen knows how much the public has criticized her lack of actions. Yeah,
Yeah, and that think about that phone call. I'm wishing you good luck. That's all she told me. I wish you good luck. So that just totally feeds into this thing where Jen is being the defense is going to argue here she's the master manipulator of this whole thing. And I
didn't
think
Jackson really do a good job on that? Because it was like, oh, and when you called and remembered, was Jen there then? Yeah. Oh, Jen was there then. Was Jen there? Like Jen was there every like you were at Jen's house. Like
Mhm.
she like every single time she was with Jen. It was just it's like it was so obvious.
So think about it. This jury has already got this impression of Jen McCabe, and they haven't even heard the 911 call, and she hasn't even testified yet.
Yeah.
So I think it's rolling beautifully that way because the drama is getting more and more building suspense and intrigue by the jurors, and so she's already got damage. The prosecutor already has damage control issues, and Jen McCabe hasn't even testified yet.
Yeah. A question from Jay Coop. It says, "What is Carl's thoughts on how the Commonwealth has changed their theory 4 times?"
Yeah, they're gonna and they're probably still gonna keep moving the target on what they're gonna say happened, the distances, and all that kind of stuff. So I think they need to bring that out through their own testimony and experts. And so, like this whole thing about the car now going in reverse, Karen's car going in reverse 70 some feet. Before it was 62, and so it's the whole thing of it is also the time sequence. They've been fudging the time sequence because they stuck with Jen McCabe, and now I think Brennan realizes she's damaged goods, and so he's going to try to skate around that, and they're going to try to make excuses for that. But in the end, it's uh, it's going to be, I think, overwhelming evidence to show that there's uh, there's other people that did something that John O'Keefe. It wasn't Karen.
A great question that came in from Melanie. She says they pick a jury who hasn't seen anything about this case, tell them not to watch anything about the case, then show them selected clips from interviews and documentaries. Please explain.
Yes, because what they're trying to do is admission of a party opponent. There's rules of evidence in all 50 states and in federal courts where if an opponent, especially the criminal defendant, says something, it's an admission. And in Massachusetts, anything a party says can be admissible, even if it's not an admission, quote unquote. And so anything Karen says, even stuff like when she's talking about John's mom, well, what's that got to do with anything related to the case? How's that probative of guilt? They're just trying to say that, oh, she made her mom look like she's John's mom look like she's, sort of mean. But that also I think helps because I think the way Peggy O'Keefe came across, she looks like she can be really mean, right? So I think that helped neutralize anybody who thinks like why would Karen sort of recreate how mean she acted in her facial expressions? But I think this goes to show that Karen just really sort of is being real. And think about the fact that Peggy O'Keefe said when asked how long he'd been married, she said too long and laughed about it. And this is the murder trial for her son, so she couldn't even contain herself from making a jab at her husband and her marriage. So it's I think you got the vibe that she obviously didn't like Karen and she liked Carrie. Carrie's the one that the mom was trying to probably wishing her son had married. And then you think about also the fact that Carrie says, "Why I had to go pick him up," the parents of John, because they didn't have 4-wheel drive. And then what do we hear from Peggy? Oh no, we had 4-wheel drive. So you know,
What's going on there?
it's, you got these people that are jockeying for positions, and you gotta peel back the onion and look at their motives.
Definitely. Madeline wants to know if you'll run for Massachusetts DA.
Um, I'd have to establish residency there, and they'd probably trump up some charges on me if I did that.
That when we had that DA candidate, that was a lot of the questions are like, "Are you afraid? Are you?"
Yeah, I've had
Uh,
some questions that people think whether I'm afraid or not. I'm not afraid to call these folks out. I mean,
yeah.
it's
Karen, thank you so much. She said, "So glad you found Carl, or Carl found you." What a gentleman from Ireland, Karen. I think our common supporters found us and brought us together. That's what actually happened. They're
right.
like, "You got to get Carl on." So I love that. The audience often tells me like who I should be booking, and I do listen. Sherry D says, "Hey GMA, when is the follow up story about Carrie Roberts lying?" I'm
Well,
not sure. What do you want to say? Something on that?
well, the thing is, she embellished her grand jury testimony by making it sound like she overheard Karen saying something, and when she realized, when she had to admit, with Jackson's questioning her, that no, it was what was planted in her mind by the timeline created by Jen McCabe. So that was a critical detail to bring out. And my whole thing is, it's not so much that she lied about it in the grand jury that helped get Karen indicted. I mean, that's serious. But I think what the big point to this drives home for the jury is how much of an influencer Jen McCabe is. That's the biggest takeaway, because I don't think Carrie Roberts realizes how much she's being used in this whole
Yeah,
process.
no, no,
Do
she's
you
just a
agree?
follower. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
she's
she's
just a
being set up,
follower. She
and
thinks
maybe
she's
now
doing the
if she's
right
starting to
thing.
realize, if she's following social media comments and all that, and YouTube, now she maybe realized, oh my gosh, I've been suckered this whole time by Jen McCabe, right? And so it's gonna be interesting to see how this plays out, because who knows what other influences we have for Jen McCabe that haven't come out yet, that we have not uncovered, that defense counsel know about, and they'll bring that up in front of the jury as well.
I'm anxiously looking forward to it. Marie Martin says, "Hi, I am worried about the defense today. Do you think it's going well for Karen? The judge letting a witness ramble while defense tries to stop and then says they opened the door. Hope defense asks for a mistrial."
Yeah, I mean, they had Lally doing that, expert pathologist from the hospital on direct, and then they had Little doing it on cross, and she's just not that experienced. She doesn't come across confident and is self assured, and the judge said she did open the door on something, which I thought was correct. But this whole thing about her alcohol, I mean, that even that is like really botched up for the prosecution, because this is not a legally, a credentialed lab to do these kind of blood draws. It's only for medical purposes, not for legal purposes. The judge is going to let it in anyway, and they're going to try to extrapolate back based on what her alcohol reading was, as to what it was at the time, that supposedly, around the 12:30ish time frame, what it would have been at that point. But we had, as I recall, there's information that when Karen got back to John's that night, when she left around, and when she got there at 12:36, I should say, right? She still stayed up and drank. So I would object it and said, this is you know this is not this is more prejudicial than probative. So that's the thing on relevancy under Rule 401. Something has to be relevant to the case, the issues of the case, in order to come in as before the jury. But even if it's relevant, if it's too prejudicial or misleading of the jury, then you can keep it out. Well, here in this case, like, if if Karen is still drinking after she got home, this whole purpose of what her alcohol level was is completely irrelevant and highly prejudicial, right? So it's like, but the prosecutor doesn't care and the judge doesn't care. So I would say, and I don't see the defense argued that to keep it out. But I've done an extrapolation case like this where I had a medical professional testify to the um, what the time frame would have been, like 8-9 hours earlier, and it was very helpful. But that was a situation where somebody didn't drink after the time in question, right? Here, if you got somebody that drank at time in question, as a prosecutor, you shouldn't even be presenting that kind of information, right? And it just also brings up the idea that Karen left there. She was drinking with cops and left with cops. And they were drinking, so they all taken care of and each other, and they don't have to worry about a DUI. And yet Karen's one busted for a DUI manslaughter charge is one of the charges, and yet she was driving a cop. you know. So it just shows you how crazy that justice system is up there.
God equal. Glamour Sue says, is Bev friends with Heather Unruh? She hates AJ. Heather Unruh was a Channel 5 reporter. Her son was a witness against Kevin Spacey in that
Mm.
big trial that happened, I think, on Martha's Vineyard or something like that. I don't know. I don't know if she's friends with that. That would be wild if she was friends with Heather Unruh. I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Also,
Who
I
knows?
can I can say though the way she treats the defense is so dismissive. The way she is moving around all the time, looking at her computer, not doesn't give them any respect whatsoever. Cuts off the attorneys when they're talking, and she just sits back and lets if you notice, Brandon just ramble on and talk about, oh, the defense has been I've been worried about this since my first day on the case. The defense would be doing some of the ARCA witnesses and all this big grandstanding garbage he's arguing. And you know what? If Alan Jackson did that, she just shuts him down right away. Alan Jackson can't even say something like, their goal is to keep out ARCA as witnesses. That's the prosecution's goal. Stop arguing and get to the point, on issue here. So it's just so one sided that it's. I think that's why a lot of people are fired up and angry about it. They see it, even though they're not lawyers. You all can see it and really realize how one sided this is and how she's being railroaded.
So we have a lot of viewers on both channels right now. I want to make sure people are subscribing. Make sure you follow, like, subscribe to Carl Steinbeck. If you're watching on the Young Jerks channel, we have it pinned at the top of the chat, all his social media. Definitely make sure you follow. And you don't want to miss Carl. He's live a lot and in the evening. It's a good one to watch. Make sure you're following him. I want to thank everyone who's been watching and sending great questions tonight. Here's one that just came up, and you mentioned ARCA. We had mentioned ARCA earlier. Deborah wants to know: do you guys think ARCA will provide all enough paperwork that Bev and Brennan will allow them to testify?
I I don't think they can come up with enough things to avoid them being set up. If you're trying to set somebody up, then you can always make something up and say this technicality is so important. And if she doesn't find anything against Arca, then she'll find something that the attorneys failed to do, like they failed to preserve the text messages and all that stuff. So it's not about giving Karen a fair trial. It's looking to how can we not give her a fair trial? Because if you give her a fair trial, it's a slam dunk win, plain and simple.
Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of faith in either Bev or Brennan. I mean, that's just they've proven it, and I tried with this judge. Like I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt that she just wasn't good at her job, but I went from that to bias to I think it's even worse than that. So Mr. Monk's understudy, he's the one who actually recommended that I hit up Carl. So we love Mr. Monk's understudy. He says most trials aren't this long or have this many witnesses. I think the defense needs to find a way to do a second site visit at the end. I guess they did that in the Murdoch murder trial, the Murdoch murder trial. Excuse me. We did kind of ask this question earlier. That's actually where it came from. I forgot, Mr. Monk's understudy. So we did answer that. I mean, do you anything else you want to add to that about the second
No,
site visit?
apparently you're saying that Murdaugh was they went out there twice. I don't recall them going
I'm
out
not
there
sure if they
twice.
went out there twice, but what I think he's mentioning is that they went at the end. That
Okay, all
they
right.
they didn't make that real site visit until the very end.
Yes, and they also had, but they had clearer video and stuff like that. So I don't think it was as critical to get out there earlier. I do think this is going to help the defense having them go out there and they're seeing how much of a closer proximity all those events are to the front door of that house, and seeing how close Brian Albert's bedroom is to where John O'Keefe was laying before Albert testifies. I think that's a good thing for the defense.
Question keeps coming up a lot in the chat tonight. I didn't see it. They said, what about the big rock strategically placed in the yard besides the Lexus today, painted with Alberts and polka dots? Did you see that? I didn't watch any of the video or any of the info that came out from that site visit.
Yeah, I'm just surprised they had the Lexus there. I think that is very misleading to show where I was at. And it's to place it up by the flagpole, so where they're trying to say that it happened. I think that's improper. And but the judge is trying to like plant in the jury mind. Yep, that's where he died. He was found right here, and this is where her car was at. And her car wasn't up by the flagpole. The only time it was up by that flagpole is when she left to go home, and she was already would have been already more in the center of the road at that point, leaving there when she did. So this whole thing also about backing up, I think that's all just something that's not credible and reliable information that the prosecution's propping up. They don't have enough forensic details, digital evidence to show that that was actually happening, and especially the timeline. Maybe the wheels did spin in reverse, but I'm curious to see if they also have what I've had for folks on some of my live stream comments saying that folks that know about these Lexuses that they're programmed with traction control and all this other software, and this is like a very new. It was like a brand new Lexus at that point, right? This has happened in 2022. It's like a 2022 Lexus, and it had all the bells and whistles that Lexus made. And this is like a big SUV. It's all-wheel drive, and so for be able to spin out a vehicle that fast, um, they're telling me that you really can't go more than 7 to 9 miles an hour in that. So I'm curious to see if that comes out at all, and then even if it could go 24 miles an hour, and that's something that is uh, something that my wife and I replicated, and when you're going that fast, you have to you're not going to stop suddenly. There's going to be a long, skidding process in that snow as well. So guess what? If she was going that fast right at the flagpole, she would have smashed at a minimum into the front blade of that Jeep, Higgins Jeep. So none of this adds up. None of it.
Yes.
It's all quackery, Mike.
And
It
you think
really is.
someone would hear it from inside the house too, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and you tell me John didn't hear it and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So,
And I mean, and John didn't instantly die too. You tell me he couldn't have screamed out or made some, you know what I mean?
right, right.
Uh, Brennan and the two potted plants ask. Carrie says she dug snow off his face, but Jen McCabe says on the call they just rolled him over.
All right.
That's a discrepancy too.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned that earlier tonight, and I think the defense, what they could argue is that this is one of the slips ups that Jen made, and that's why she wasn't trying to give up too much details because they rolled him over. I would argue that she knew that they had rolled him over earlier. That's why she slipped up and has reverted to a different time frame. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I think that was a slip up by McCabe. That's what I argue anyway for the defense.
Bias beratements says, "Hi Carl, thoughts on Bev allowing redirects for Hank? Normal. Also thoughts on Hank with all the leading questions, witnesses running commentary. What do you think?"
Yeah, I think that this is something that I think it so bothers Brennan when he can't score when he sees the defense scoring points with his own witnesses that he's got to try to resurrect them. He's got to try to salvage them and rehabilitate them. And so he's clawing and scratching, trying to do it every way he can. And he's very much leading them. And so I would there is some more leading when you're doing redirect on a witness, but he's like almost like cross-examining them. He's almost like making it where they only have to answer a yes no type question on a lot of it. So I do think it's abnormal, and I think that I think if they object to him being leading, I think that they should get some sustains, but with this judge you never don't. So I would say that the more he's doing that kind of stuff, the more that reveals that defense scored some good points against his witness.
This is what Carl, who would be your favorite cross examination?
I think I think that I think Jen McCabe is the key for the whole defense, even more so than Brian Albert. With despite the fact he's, you know, his ridiculous story about why he never came out and all that kind of stuff. But I think the defense theme needs to run through Jen McCabe more than anybody else, and so I would do that on cross examination. She'd be on the stand the longest, and think about the way she smarts off to the defense counsel when they're trying to pin her down on stuff. So it's and she probably would be somebody that's easier to crack than any of the men. So whether it's Higgins or Brian Albert, and whether Colin Albert's even allowed to testify remains to be seen as well. But it's all smoke and mirrors, hide the ball, hide the truth from the jury. That's the way they want to bring it out. And I think that with Jen, you can really rattle her. I think she I think her composure that she was able to maintain this last time, you could see her getting mad and stuff like that based on questions. But I think you can really rattle her this time with all this additional information that's come out, and by using the 911 thing. I think that's her own words. She's implicated herself with her own words, and um, even playing the 911 tape with her listening to it right there. I think she would just seeing her body reaction to that alone, you wouldn't even ask her any questions, and having the jury look at her when she's doing this, it's going to be really telling.
Language says everything. What the other person I think of too is her husband, Matt McCabe. I thought last time they did really good work with him. Um, I especially feel like they should just hammer him over and over again.
Yep.
And I think they did last time about the text. The guy didn't, tell him the guy didn't come in the house. Is
Right.
he another one that you
Oh,
think is like at the top?
well, he's not. He's not. I don't think he's as critical. I think that text message is golden for him, and I think that I mean, there's so many great things to bring out on all these witnesses, Mike. Not just Jen, but I mean, every single one of these have huge major points for defense to score. And I think what I like seeing about the aggressive defense they have this time, my whole mindset is when I'm cross examining somebody and I know that they're lying, they are going to know that I know they're lying, and they're going to know that they're not getting off this stand until I expose them. And that mentally, they can't handle that. Jurors see that, and having to testify in front of 12 people is a lot of pressure. Okay. I don't know if you've ever had to testify before, but there's a lot of mental pressure.
No.
And especially if you can't keep your story straight. And that's one of the things I argue in every single case I've had, either as prosecutor or defense counsel. Every single case I argue and I bring up uh, that no liar has a good enough memory to fill in all the details. Okay. And that's how you know somebody's lying, is when you start going in the details and then they get tripped up and then they get exposed that way. And so what I would say is that if they focus on the nitty-gritty details with these witnesses, every one of them, the more they focus on the details, the more they can make them crumble and be exposed. And I think this aggressive tone that they have is, I would not let Jen McCabe feel comfortable on the witness stand. My tone of voice, the way I stare her down, the way I'm mentally telegraphing that I know what you're doing. It really psychologically makes so many witnesses wilt, and they start having their own self doubts, and they start looking at themselves like, oh gosh, I'm looking so terrible. And so it's sort of like they look worse and worse, and they start doubting themselves more and more. And you score more and more points with their body language alone that way.
Like, my partner just came in. My dog's about to bark, so I'm probably gonna step out and let him upstairs. But I got one more
Sure.
question here I want to ask you, and let you answer it while I take care of the dog situation. Shelly says Peg said when she got to the hospital and saw Karen, she was like, "Why is she here?" And it seems so rude. Do you want to comment on that? Like, what do you think about the Peggy O'Keefe testimony?
I think that just goes to show that Karen was persona non grata to Peggy O'Keefe. That somebody like Carrie would have been her perfect daughter-in-law, and not Karen. And she didn't want to relate to Karen in any way. Denver tried to probably like Karen, and I think that what happened here was, think about it. She got picked up. That was maybe Jen McCabe's suggestion as well. That, hey, Carrie, you go pick up the parents and you tell them what's going on. And so I think that she had the opportunity to plant a lot of seeds in Miss O'Keefe's mind about Karen's a bad egg and Karen's responsible. And so she was like angry that she was there. Like, what are you doing here? Like, so automatically she was it just revealed that she that Karen never had a fair shake with Peggy O'Keefe. And I think that's another sign there that reveals itself.
Talking about the defense cross examination, Reality Check says it's the intensity of the defense cross on point.
Yes, I think you need to up their game this way, and I think they need to. It's not. This is like, if you're talking about something where it's just not a he said she said kind of thing, right? It's not a, hey, did this person get assaulted or not? Who's telling them? Who's telling the truth? Who's lying? And you're just trying to sort it all out. This is something where somebody's being framed. There should be some aggressive tone and some different ways of expressing the outrage of this whole thing. And so if you're too calm, trying to get the jury to believe that this is not an outrage of injustice, it's sort of like, you almost like conveying that, it's not really, I don't really believe what I'm saying. So you got to have this credibility as an attorney that, no, I really believe what I'm saying. And that's why it was really good on the opening. And I do want to restate something here, that what if you compare the two openings, okay? And I just want to say the first lines for both and do a comparison. So keep in mind, Brennan's opening was 37 minutes, Jackson's was 47. And here's what his first line was. And you recall this, how weird it was for Hank Brennan. He said, quote, at 6:04 a.m. on January 29th, 2022, the alarm bell sounded in the Canton Fire Department. Firefighter paramedic Timothy Nuttall knew what that meant. His heart skipped a beat. He raced to his equipment. He picked up his bag, which was meticulous. That's how he starts out a murder case, talking about a firefighter having to go to his being woken up and having to put his equipment on and picking up his bag, going in those kind of details. It was like, it's like that set the tone that, to me as an attorney, I'm like, you're just trying to basically stretch this out because you can't really go into a lot of details because the details don't align with your theory of the case. You compare that to the first line of Alan Jackson, the point he made was, quote, the evidence in this case will establish above anything else 3 points. There was no collision with John O'Keefe. There was no collision. There was no collision. John O'Keefe did not die from being hit by a vehicle, period. The facts will show that. Look at the contrast between those two.
So clear, like right
Mhm.
out of the gate. It's like an elevator pitch. You know how they say
Mhm.
if you're a business person, you got to have your 30-second spiel.
Yep. And so
One
as soon as I
failed and
think,
one passes. I mean, what you know exactly what you're getting from Jackson.
right, he was very direct, he was aggressive and assertive. And look at the way the body language of Hank Brennan. He was pacing forth and back, like he was trying to come up with things just to fill the time because he didn't have a lot of good zinger things to bring out about the case, right? So that's why he starts talking about this being like you're trying to tell a storyline on a
It's a
firefighter. What,
movie or something. Yeah.
I mean, you would have talked about John O'Keefe in the beginning if you're going to talk about anything else. And so, anyway, it's just I thought saying this comparison to how the two openings started is sort of the theme for the rest of the trial, where Brennan's just sort of floundering. He's trying to make points, but he's always got this spin and this this little element of hiding the ball on things, that even the juror that not being able to see a lot of evidence that the judges said she's going to keep out and has kept out already. I would just keep hammering away and asking the judge to reconsider. And I would have case law, Supreme Court case law, ready to go in my hip pocket to call out the judge. I haven't seen that done yet on the sidebars. Maybe they have, and I just don't know it. But I also noticed a judge looking at her right away calling a sidebar when the jury isn't even there. Day one, she's calling a sidebar and the jury isn't there. Why? Because she knows people like us will see it for what it is. It's all her trying to protect the prosecution. It's not about justice for Karen Reed at all.
Such a good point. We get this question again about the mass. Apparently, there's a massive rock painted with dots in the Albert's name in the yard. Um, I don't know. Weird. That's weird. I don't know anything about it. Didn't see it.
I missed that.
Yeah. Well, that is strange, though. Rebel Duck says, shouldn't lying to the grand jury be grounds for dismissal? I thought they needed truthful and factual evidence to indict. Think about Carrie Roberts, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. You're talking about Carrie Roberts here, but the thing is, you can have every witness that gets in front of the grand jury can also lie as well, but they don't ever dismiss indictments in a trial for someone admitting they misspoke or even lied or committed perjury in front of a grand jury. They don't. It doesn't ever work that way. So they'll say, well, there's other evidence other than her lie, so we're not going to undo the indictment and dismiss the charges for that event happening. I can see why you'd think that, though, but it just doesn't work that way in American jurisprudence.
This is an interesting one from Glamasseuse because I noticed this, especially with Kerry. Kept looking that way.
Yep.
Has Carl noticed that the witnesses look to the judge to bail them out? Notice any witness coaching by the judge?
Yep. Well, I think they're probably coached by Brendan to say that, hey, if you need a lifeline, look to the judge.
She'll help you.
So, or just look to me. If you need me to bail you out, just look at me and I'll object. So that's probably the advice they're given.
There's a comment from Holly. You may have a relative here. They said Steinbeck is my mother's maiden name. First time seeing that last name outside of my family from South Dakota, Iowa, and Illinois. Mike, HR is gone. You helped with that. Great job. What about Grapes? What was that author? John Steinbeck.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He wrote some books.
I wonder where in South Dakota, because the Steinbeck's original ancestors actually settled right across Iowa in South Dakota, and then moved into Iowa in the 1860s, and but not Illinois. So I don't know. There's not many, but it's a chance we could be related. I guess not sure.
Could be related. Wow. We got all kinds of people watching, so it's funny because back before this case, I don't think many of my family and friends actually watch my show, and now I get hit up all the time from them, even like customers, and it's like, you're watching us too? I can't believe it. Like, it's so funny. Everybody is into this case. Like, have you noticed that out in Texas, or is that just a Massachusetts thing? Do you think this case is getting a kind of national attention, or is it just in my bubble here in Massachusetts where it's really catching on?
Yeah, I don't think a case like this catches on much here unless there happen to be some true crime follower. Then they would. But aside from this, the general public knowing about it, I don't think they're really tracking it. That's my guess. I don't go talking about. I guess I have a couple times said, "Hey, you guys, anybody following the Karen Reed case?" And nobody knows anything about it. But
that's what, for me, I'm shocked because I don't. I'm with you. I don't talk too much about my stuff with real life, but my real life people are hitting me up and they're like, "We've been watching you. It's amazing. I can't believe this is going on." But it's mostly, like I said, Massachusetts people. So
yeah, you would think it's everywhere you're around there, people are talking about it, right?
yeah, definitely here.
And the Then the
Okay.
people generally are outraged with the way Karen's been railroaded. Is that
Yeah,
fair to
yeah.
say?
They feel like that there's a lot of towns like that. I think that's why it resonates so much here in Massachusetts because this is like several generations of townies where they get special preference. And if you're a newcomer to the town, you realize that, like even myself, like where I used to live, where I grew up, I kind of had that almost towny cachet, and not because my family were townies, because I was friends with the townies. You know what I'm saying? Like I grew up with them and they loved me. But when I moved to this new town, now I have no, you know what I mean? Like I'm just
Oh,
nobody in this town. Like,
you have no
and I know,
pull.
yeah, and it's like the fire department, police department, those local kind of jobs, DPW, those are the ones that have the pull. They know where the bodies are buried. They know who did what, who got in a car accident, who's sleeping with who, and the favors that go on. So yeah, there's definitely something to that, especially I think in Eastern Massachusetts here. I think that's what's resonating with people. I think everyone knows somebody too. Like even like lately, I got another case where someone just sent me some, like a phone call from a Chinese restaurant that called on two drunk cops. These two legless cops, and the Chinese restaurant called the cops on them and said if they you can't let these guys drive home. The cops showed up and nothing happened to them. And it's just, the usual same old cover up stuff. And I think a lot of that is starting to come out. Like people are saying, Karen's not the only situation. Have you looked
Mm,
into my town? I've been getting so many of those calls lately. So yeah, I think that's why it resonates here a lot. This one here, Dorothy D said, if I'm a woman juror, the text help the defense, in my opinion.
right. Totally.
Right?
Totally.
Yeah, I could see that angle too. Cause like you mentioned that earlier, like it almost seemed like John was using her, like for maybe to be the babysitter. I mean, that's even what Jen and Carrie and all them, whoever said it from that little gaggle of women, mean girls, they basically called her the babysitter, glorified babysitter. Um, I mean, I feel like a lot of women probably can relate to that, right?
Right. Well, and I
Oh,
think they're jealous of Karen to begin with, and so that would
definitely.
be something that would say even if that wasn't the case. But after seeing those text messages, yeah, he's just very dismissive of Karen, and so yeah, I think it really makes I think the jury have a much different favorable view of Karen that they otherwise would have gotten so far in the case, and I think it gives a much negative viewpoint of John O'Keefe, and I think you also sort of feeds into what they saw on John's mom as well.
Mhm. And also like the fact that John, it seemed like John wanted to see Karen because he needed a ride. You
Mhm,
know what I mean? Like you want to
mhm.
go out and drink and eat a ride. So it's kind of interesting. And the mom too, the ways that yeah, even on the stand, I don't think she actually helped the way that she was dismissive.
Everything the prosecution presents, the defense has to look at as an opportunity to make their point, score points to drive home their theory. Every single witness, they got to take that approach.
And Holly says, my great grandfather had tons of farmland he leased out in Bruce.
Mm,
I don't know where that is. Do you know where Bruce is? No,
no, mm-mm.
we don't know. Thank you, Holly. Patricia says, hi from Willis, Texas. Is that near you, San Antonio?
I've heard of it. I don't know where that's at.
Texas is huge. I mean, that's like, how big is Texas? I mean, it's how many towns, cities and towns?
I
Must
don't
have
know.
thousands.
I don't
Yeah.
know the number of towns, but like what Alaska is the biggest, and then Texas and California. I forget which order they're in, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's got a lot of towns that I've never been to. That's for sure.
And you're not originally from there, are you? You moved there?
Right? Yeah, I'm an Iowa native.
Iowa. Wow. I love Iowa for wrestling. I was a high school and college wrestler, so like Dan Gable,
Mhm.
man. Just what I love about Dan Gable, greatest wrestler ever. He lost one match. He did lose. Like even the greatest of all time lost one time. And M, what are Carl's thoughts about Michael Proctor testifying? Thank you.
Well, I think that to what we heard on the text conversation between Karen and John, I think that that drives home a lot of sympathy. And then when you hear Proctor talking about Karen, somebody with MS, let alone talking about a defendant, and what a just an absolute disgrace he is to law enforcement. I mean, you don't hear any of those kind of words coming out in any criminal case that I've ever seen. And so for his also ties to the McCabe's that he's tried to distance himself from, I think, I mean, this is huge for the defense to show that he did stuff to run interference, not to gather information and solve a crime. So between him and Jen McCabe is influencing things going on. I mean, it's really easy to see how Karen wound up where she is. So yeah, they're gonna be able to score big points on that.
Carrie Johnson had a question here. She says, no evidence Karen backed up into the grass. So how did the taillight get on the grass? If they say it happened on the street, it would be on the street, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. And if John was up on the grass, I guess they're trying to say some of it stuck to him or something. I don't know. None of this makes any sense. If you look at how would they how would they show John is standing when he gets hit, right? How do they know how he was standing when he got hit? If he was and where he was at in the yard, they don't know. They're just making this up.
Yeah.
Complete. It's a
Fiction.
complete made up story. They don't know. They don't even know the exact spot his body was. They know generally, but they don't know exact position his body was. I mean, it's just such a botched crime scene and botched investigation that the most fundamental elementary things that they would have in a homicide investigation, they just completely botched it.
The taillight spoke to them. Reality checks ask, do either of you remember from the first trial any damage being reported by the CSI to the top part of the vehicle?
Mm-mm. It's only to the tail light.
No, I don't recall that. I mean, I've seen pictures of that. There's been some scratches that almost looks like they might have pried it open.
I don't
But
believe there's any. Yeah, it
yeah,
was just a tail light.
yeah,
And so that's why it's also bizarre because they would have to say if based on the injuries, what part of that vehicle hit John to make the injuries that he had. So did he stick his arm out? Did he stick his head out like this? I mean,
yeah.
how did he get injuries where he had some injuries, but then he doesn't have other injuries that would be consistent with being struck by a vehicle? I mean, normally you see bodily injury, from the chest,
Legs, yeah, yeah.
from the chest area
Abdomen,
down. You see, um, you'd see broken
broken
bones and
legs,
broken
yeah,
ribs, broken
yeah.
shoulder, and maybe a broken leg and all that kind of stuff. And just think about, you guys have a lot of deer strikes up there. Think of all the deers you see, how
Oh
they
yeah,
damage they do on vehicles. And John was around 225 pounds, so if he was hit by a car, you'd see, more than just a taillight broken out.
definitely.
You'd probably see some of the dented metal and whatnot. But the the fact is the tail light damage constantly evolved, and from the first time it became an issue to how many days later they're still finding pieces. It just doesn't make any sense. And then supposedly there was even a party going on that happened after this murder of John O'Keefe. They had a party like 2 weeks later at 34 Fairview. Were you tracking that, Mike?
Wild. That, but that tracks with them. I mean, think about that.
And yet nobody saw anything from there at the party, supposedly, and yet they still have cops coming by and finding stuff for the taillight pieces. So it's
Now, how do you have marks on your arms and then the gash in your head? I mean, that doesn't make sense. The whole thing doesn't make sense.
Yeah, those are like bite tearing marks on the arm.
Yeah.
Okay, there's no other way to describe
Or
that.
scratches. Yeah, I think it's both bites and scratches. That's my. I'm a dog guy. That's my opinion. I think it's both.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess I don't know what you're saying. It'd be the front claws that are scratching. Yeah, I guess that
Yep.
could be the case as well. But is that
Some
normal
of
for
them.
a German Shepherd to want to claw and bite? And so I thought they just more bite than want to claw. But part
Depends.
of the biting action is they bite down and then pull back, right, to try to do that tearing action to rip flesh. So, and then it looked like there was teeth depressions on his hoodie, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
So, I mean that lines up with the dog bite
Those
as
those little
well,
holes, those little holes, those
right?
adults.
And what the prosecution is going to say, those are from the tail light. I mean, that's just
No way.
so. And then how do you get all those linear type scratches all in the same, all the way down the arm? And so that's not going to happen from a tail light. So if you got hit with your arm with the tail light, you'd have, and let's just say it punctured some part where it became sharp, you'd have a tear going this way down your arm, right? It wouldn't be all these little um, tears that and bite marks that are perpendicular to your arm. They'd be linear to your arm. So none of this makes any sense except that it was the guy got beat up and attacked by a dog.
He says Bruce is near Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Wow. And she says Jen started her cover up right away with her 227 search over a year prior, defense finding out about it. She got Carrie Roberts to be a part of her lie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That is true.
Joanne says, what recourse will the defense have if Bev is successful in keeping Archer out?
Wow. Yeah, that's good. They don't have, if they don't have those two ARCA experts, then they're not going to be able to call anybody else. So only the prosecution will have their experts. Just like with the law enforcement, they don't have any defense law enforcement experts. So it's supposed to be a battle of the experts, except this judge is finding ways to strip them of any expert testimony. So it's basically with cross examination is the only way they can. In the judge's mind, you can cross examine the government's experts, but I'm going to punish you by not bringing your own. It's it's a complete sham court.
So it's so patently unfair.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just going through to make sure I didn't miss any of these super chats because quite a few of them came through, and people do get mad sometimes when you miss them.
Mm.
We try to get them all. We got two channels of super chats going tonight, so I want to thank everyone who's watching tonight and supporting and sending all the good questions. Carl, do you have any final thoughts tonight? Like anything else that we didn't cover that we should be talking about with Karen Reed?
I would say that overall, I'm very satisfied with the defense job. I feel confident that they have an aggressive tone. Think of how Alessi stood up to the judge from day one when she started looking at this thing about the text messages being an issue she's going to try to keep Barca out with. And so they come there loaded to bear. They're ready to strenuously argue, and they got to build a record. And so if they got the fire in their belly that they need to be convincing advocates, and they're calling out the judge more, they're having more sidebars. I'm seeing now like Yannetti calling for a sidebar right away on something. And so they need to have a complete different mindset than they did the first trial, and I've been saying that. And so far, they are delivering. So I'm very positive for that. I think that this approach will help make the difference for Karen because, like I say, you have to have your lawyers selling something they actually believe in. And if you don't, if your client's getting railroaded this bad, you better have a lot of passion, and it's got to be controlled passion too, right? You just can't be hollering and yelling and carrying on um, like some maniac in the courtroom. But it's got to be very focused, very deliberate, and very strenuous and very well reasoned. And like I say, I would have case law to back it up. These things that the judge is doing to keep out lines of questioning or keep out witnesses and keep asking the judge to recuse herself for her bias against Karen Reed. So anyway, that's sort of my takeaway and the thing I'm looking forward to. And I've seen just a few minutes of his testimony. So again, the judge is very much limiting what he can say so far. She puts caveats on there, and keep in mind, she's putting caveats out there on whether the third party culprit defense can be used for the two Bryans. It's not totally open the door yet. She's saying you still got to build that record up of how they could be possible suspects. And as I've said on my channel, it's like a motive to get in a fight with somebody that winds up in a death could happen in a split second, right? You could just have somebody say the wrong thing, maybe, and maybe not even a fight ensue. Maybe it could be something like, hey, you walk in and you actually step on the dog's tail or something, and the dog turns around and bites you, and then you fall back and hit your head, you get knocked out, and they don't know what to do. They drag you out. So it doesn't have to be. It could be that something that
Right.
passive,
Yeah.
something that non-malicious at this outset, or it could be, hey, he walks in the door and somebody hits him over the head with a crowbar. I mean, it could be any number of scenarios, but I think that for this judge to have this mindset, it's like, well, no, fights can only happen if there's long-standing blood brewing between them. It's so ridiculous, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
And
Because
so,
I mean, most fights, it's alcohol and ego.
right,
I mean, that's it. Alcohol and ego.
right,
You put those
and
things together, and people that have short fuses, people that
right,
don't have, and who does that? It's usually the people that have an after hours party after the bar closes.
yeah,
I mean, that's the stuff I used to do when I was 21, 22, 23, single, young. That's expected. But when you're 50 plus with adult grown kids and you're still doing that, to me, that raises a lot of red flags about your lifestyle, period. So
right,
I just that to me is the most obvious is that these people drunk, ego, short fuse. Like the cop. Like how many cops are like that too, right? I mean, a lot of law enforcement turn out to be like that. Not everybody, obviously. I don't like to stereotype people. They're not all the same, but
right,
there is a certain amount of cops that we know that are like that.
right. Well, I mean, part of it is like a lot of them, they have jobs where they got to respond to domestic situations and their life could be online from day to day, and they can have PTSD and they have a lot of
Yeah,
rage
that's
issues to deal
stress. That
with.
stress really
Yeah,
messes with you too. Yeah,
yeah, and
especially if
so
you're not getting help for it, which most of them don't get any help.
right,
So
right, and then if they have a drinking problem on top of it, and they're trying to cope with stresses that way, and then they could have some PTSD on top of it. So they're stressed, they got PTSD, and they're drinking, and
and the culture is to be tough, be strong. Don't
right,
pretend there's a problem. Be the toughest guy here. Like that's always how the cops act. Like there is a lot of that culturally. Like so. Unfortunate. This is a comment that came in. I want to definitely acknowledge. Audrey says, I'm a doc who resigned from VANG in 2021 over loyalty investigations during the deployment, the inauguration, and potential forced vaccination that happened. I had to tell JAG to stop the deputization of my medics during deployment. Free Karen Reed. You're a military guy, so I figured you might have a comment or not on that one.
this is I assume he's talking about VANG means Virginia National Guard over a loyalty investigation during deployment for the inauguration and potential forced vaccination that happened. I had to tell Jack to stop the deputization of my medics during the deployment. I don't know what he means by deputization though of the medics, but so yeah, don't know exactly everything he's referring to there, but he rather than doing something I guess he thought was morally wrong, he resigned. And so, I mean, maybe that's something of why the chief of police there of Canton resigned or retired, because maybe the heat's getting to her, and she
Well,
realizes she doesn't have the capability to root out all the corruption there in that town.
I don't think that's it. I think
No.
what you said for I think part of it's true. I think that she knew that she knew the heat was coming for her. Like
Mm,
uh, there was just an election with select board, and there was the longtime 30 plus year incumbent who never lost. won
Wow.
every time. He supported her contract extension. The challenger, first time candidate, professional woman, a veterinarian, she wants to review the contract, and definitely you could tell she's saying she wanted someone from the outside to take over. She won, and it was a
Okay.
landslide. It was
Okay.
over 1,000 votes. It was 2-1. So
Wow.
like you'd expect, I thought that race was going to be close. I really did. I thought like, yeah, this is a race that could be decided by 100 votes. It wasn't even close. He got blown out, which was shocking. So I think that has a lot to do with it now because the contract and the last meeting before she announced that she was retiring, it became an issue at the select board meeting with this new select board member on the board and about whether Chris Albert would recuse himself from
Mm.
voting for the Chiefs contract extension. And one of the board members basically said, Chris, I don't think you're right on that. I think you need to recuse yourself. So you could tell it was starting to become a political issue in town, and it was going to become like everyone was expecting that meeting to be all about her contract extension and kind of the select board arguing about it. And then it was announced she's retiring. So I think
Hmm.
votes matter when people vote and they change change select board members. That's what did it. And I think that's the message, for district attorney too, is like next year there's an election that matters in Norfolk County. People need to get out and vote. There's going to be some candidates challenging
Yeah.
sitting DA who's never lost. He's been, like you said, he started out as a state rep, he became a state senator, he became a DA. He's never lost an election. He's been in office his whole life. He's never had a real job. And
Wow.
now he's either going to have to resign and retire like the chief did, or he's going to have a serious campaign against him.
Yeah, isn't
So
there another attorney that threw their hat in the ring is also running? There's
yes,
two
there's two
attorneys.
two two different attorneys that I know of who are running,
Mhm.
and they both look highly qualified. Like the one that we had on the other night, she's a former prosecutor. She did sex crimes. She's a private practice attorney. She's been involved in a lot of things. She started out in the Manhattan District Attorney's office just as like not an intern. What do you call them? Clerk, as a clerk way back in the day,
Mm.
and then she's worked in, for the AG. She's done a variety of justice work, specifically for advocate, victims, and so she's phenomenal. And this other guy looks pretty good too. So either one of them, I don't care who it is, anybody but Morrissey.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be fun next year. Thank you so much for being here, Carl.
Thanks,
Got a
Mike.
couple more super chats that came in. Allison says, Is smacking and tea sucking and mask thing was off the charts at first trial." I don't know. Did you hear that? There was some of that going on.
I just hear a lot of noise the judge is making. I'm just really shocked, and it always seems to be during the time that defense is doing cross. And also, I hear the sirens all the time. Only when defense
Yeah. What do you think about
counsel is.
that?
What's up with that, Mike?
Yeah, it seems suspicious, doesn't it?
Hmm.
The sighing. She sighs. Yeah. Well, again, I want to thank you so much for being here, Carl Steinbeck. I hope everyone subscribes, follows you. We'll be watching you throughout the trial. People are asking already, will Carl come back every Friday night? I'm looking forward to, we'll hopefully do some more shows together
We can
real
do it
soon
again.
on this. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you so much. And I wish your family, your wife, and your kitties, people were talking about your cats tonight.
Mhm.
Your cat, what is it, Leo? I've seen a couple of them. You have a couple cats?
Yeah, Leo and Tigger and LJ. LJ's
I
the
love
the one kitten from the two. So
I love them.
mm,
I see them. They curl up around you. They definitely
yeah,
enjoy your presence.
yeah. No, I got the door closed now because Leo once tried to take over the show one time.
I
So
saw.
Leslie keeps him out of the room here. So
I've had Charlie do. I had to let Charlie out tonight. I had him in the kennel earlier because he doesn't say anything. He gets up on me and then he tries to get up on the computer.
yeah, yeah. He was knocking the mic around and everything. Yeah, it was not
Yeah.
a good thing. But
Awesome. Well, I'm
now
so
we'll
glad. Yeah, I'm so glad they behaved themselves outside the door. You can let Leo in now. Thank you so much, Carl Steinbeck, for spending Friday night with us.
All right. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later.
You too. Have a great night. Follow him, Carl Steinbeck, attorney Carl Steinbeck. It's always a pleasure to have him on the show. That's such a got so much good to deliver. We have it pinned at the top of the chat right now. Make sure you follow him. We got let me see, Sarah and Shakanhara. She's got his Twitter page, Jury Trial Mentor, that you should follow, and his YouTube. It's at Carl Steinbeck. You should definitely follow him. It's pinned at the top of the chat. Just hit the link. Make sure you're following him. I also have a new website, blog, email us, Midnight Mass, www.midnightmassnews.com. Make sure you subscribe, put your email in there. It's going to be a lot more stories coming out. I'm going to have some stuff on Susan Harrington, what the Canton residents think about her election that we talked about tonight. We're also going to have some other things that we're coming out with there. A lot of good stuff on there. Make sure you're following midnightmassnews.com. I want to thank our moderators, Sarah and Shakanhara. She bought more subs tonight. She's amazing. She's been here all day. Thank you so much, Sarah Shakanhara. I want to thank Jen O, who was working earlier today, but checking things out. I love our mods because they work, they have lives, but they still try to spend time with us. And then they apologize when they can't be here. And I'm like, you don't need to apologize. I feel like I need to apologize to them because they're always working the show, helping me out. So I really love our moderators. I want to thank MJ, Stephanie, Sarah, and Shock and Harris, Scott McGinnis. Did I miss anyone? I think I got them all. Thank you. There's 5 of them. They're all great. I love our mod team. And I also want to thank all the super chats that came out tonight. Oh, here's one for Shelly. I didn't post. She says, the best medium that I follow said she saw exactly what happened and which cop hit him when he walked in. Ah, see, I can't trust. I don't trust that medium stuff. I know sometimes it turns out to be right, but I mean, a broken clock is right twice a day. But I'd be interested to see which one she said, which one to the medium finger, which cop. Uh, Hammy said, "Is there a second show coming up with Mike and the newscaster?" I'm not sure what that's about. I haven't heard anything. I don't think so. I was on WRKO today, which is the Howie Carr Radio Network. It's actually a few stations. It's a WRKO 680 AM in Boston. It's a kind of a legendary talk radio AM station in Boston. I was on there this afternoon with the Grace Curley show, and that's also simulcast in other states as well. It's on the Howie Carr Radio Network. That was great. I enjoyed that. That was the second time I did that. Betterow was on Fox News, like major, like not like even like business news. Like he was on the real Fox News. I think that was either today or yesterday. That was pretty amazing to see Betterow all suited up. Like it's funny too watching him because he sounded a little different, like the mic or something. It's like you get a different view, like different angle of him. It's like wow, he looks a little different. It's funny when you see people on different platforms. People notice that with me on the radio that my voice sounds a lot different because I don't have the fancy mic. I'm using the crappy cell phone. I'm on a speaker phone. I need to get a new phone. But it's funny when we're in different platforms and we sound different. But that was exciting to see Betterow on there. I guess Nurse Kim is on Court TV tonight, which I got to see that. I got to see my Nurse Kim clutching her pearls, hopefully. I'm looking forward to seeing Nurse Kim on Court TV. That's going to be fun. Yeah, there you go. Nurse Kim on Court TV tonight. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do sound different because I'm on the speakerphone and I don't have the fancy mic. I think what I need to do, they always hit me up last minute, so I never prepared. But I think what I need to do next time is have them call a Google number, and so I can use the real microphone. Because I don't think I sound as good on the speakerphone on my crappy phone, and I can't even do a plug-in because the the plug is broken. I'm like, I really do need a new phone, but I'm too cheap. I don't like to get. Yeah, see, I can't even plug. That's the thing. Tax cut. I know. I have the headphone thing, but I can't. The plug is broken, and I don't want to buy a new phone. Like I'm using I'm using one of these battery things to charge it because I can't charge it to the. So I probably just need to suck it up and get a new phone. Bluetooth. Yeah, I tried Bluetooth. It's even worse. Bluetooth is worse than speakerphone. Actually, that's what I found. I used to do the Bluetooth calls on the show, and I had issues with those too. But that's another reason I want to get a new phone so I can take phone calls again and plug it directly into the phone. That's why I probably will get a new phone. Yeah, I am cheap. I felt like I spent a lot of money on the show this year with the new lights and the new camera and the new computer and the stream yard. There's a lot that I don't know. I feel like I have spent a lot on this. Karma Believer, thank you so much. Has a question for Carl, but Carl's gone. Carl is not here anymore. Who does he think should cross Jen? I want Alessi, but would love his input. Oh man, I think it's Alan Jackson. I mean, I like Alessi too. I think Alessi would be great too. And Alessi showed that he can be fired up. So either Jackson or Alessi, I think is obvious who it will be, but I think it's going to be Alan Jackson. I do. I think that's who it's going to be, the Karma Believer. But you never know. They may switch it up. They switch up the opening. I don't know. I have a feeling it will be Jackson. Thank you so much to the Karma Believer. That's got. I think so. Oh, JFK. I've just been waiting for you to ask. I would love to. You know what? We talked about that a while ago, actually, and I don't know if it was me that getting it back or you. I think I said I was going to do it, but I was busy. I would love to do your show, JFK. I'm in. Hit me up. Let's set a date, time, night, whatever you want to do. I am in. I would love to do JFK show. Yeah, anytime. Let me know. Probably if I do the JFK show, there's probably gonna be a lot of disclaimers. I love when they call me Mikey. Mikey, Mikey. Yeah, word up. Exactly. I love JFK. He's a good guy. I like their show too. It's a fun show. And I like how different they are than everyone else. Yeah, disclaimer. Hopefully, if I do the show, I can we get Kevin from South Boston? I want to talk to him. I want to say hi to him. I want to ask him what kind of wrestling moves does he really know? Does he know how to put someone in a crucifix? I know his buddy Brian Albert probably does. Yeah, I'm the only reason you know about JFK. That's interesting. He's put a lot of music out in videos before too. He's had a lot of music on the radio, satellite radio, but as well as like jamming 94.5. I used to hear his music on there, like the Celtic songs. He's been around a long time. He's all, JFK too. He's put out some movies, documentaries. I don't know if anyone ever saw that movie he put out way back. I think it was called Shirley Ave. If you haven't, you got to check it out. JFK, I don't know where that movie is, but you should be linking that up because that is a good movie. I like that movie a lot that you put out. And it's not a documentary, it's like an acted movie, but it almost seems like a documentary. It's like a real, like, I like that movie. That was a very good movie. Short film, whatever you call it. So he's been around for a while. He's done a lot of good work. Yeah, it will be lit. Hopefully, I want to have James on there too. I love James. Yeah, it's about autism. That's right. I wanted to say that, but I want to screw it up. But that the kid in that movie, I don't know if he's related to you, Tommy. That's right. He does a really good job in that movie. You do a good job featuring him too. I love that movie. All right, I'm gonna head out. You know what I gotta do though? Before I leave, I gotta make sure I'm checking any Venmos and all that. I think I missed some the other night, so I want to thank some people too. Paula sent $10 and she said, "You're both incredible. What do you think about Judge Canoni working with Jack Daniels for decades, the grandfather of Colin?" What? I didn't hear about that. Are you kidding me? Huh, that's weird. I gotta look into that. I don't know if you meant like Jack Daniels the drink, or is that like the real grandfather of Colin? I need more information. I need more info on that one. That's interesting, Paula. Kimberly C sent $20 yesterday. She says, "Free Karen Reed." Thank you so much, Kimberly C. Carolyn C sent $10 yesterday too. She said, "Speaking of the guy grabbed by ICE, would you interfere with someone picked up by the feds as a terror threat? For instance, MS-13, which the White House considers a terrorist org, are the only acceptable terrorists from the Middle East Muslims." I don't know anything about that. I focus on Karen Reed right now. There's too much other stuff going on in the world. I can't get caught up. I focus on Karen Reed. Melanie R also sent $25 the other day, and she said, "My pleasure to send a little appreciation your way." Thank you so much, Melanie. And I'm not sure if I got this one the other day. Laurie, this was like 3 days ago. Laurie T sent $10. Thank you so much. And again, I'm looking at the Nan Gallagher when she said $500 the other night. Thank you so much, Nan. Again, that was amazing. You made my night. You really did. I think that's it. All right. I think I'm all caught up. Let's check the super chats real quick. Yeah, Carl's channel is amazing. Definitely people should check it out. Subscribe if you haven't. And I think I got everything. I want to thank Michelle Roy. I want to thank Mr. Monk's understudy, Susan. Thank you so much for becoming members. Also want to thank Special KL. Thank you, Special KL. And Jay Coop tonight. Thank you so much. And Audrey, thank you so much for the donation tonight. And Chris Shave. This is a question that I probably should ask that I didn't get a chance to. He says, "How can we complain about Bev leading witnesses, allowing video that was against mass law, clear bias?" The problem is, there's not too much you can do. You know, this Brian Barrera, I think, is going to try to do something, but there's really not too much you can do. That's the problem, right? Good question, though. Sui Generous sent $2. She says, "Carl eats equals honesty is so good. Thanks, Mike." Thank you so much, Sue. You are right. Carl is about justice. Decline said, "Thank you, Mike." Yeah, we did read that earlier. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, D. And I want to thank Madeline too. Madeline, thank you tonight. And Karen, thank you so much for making a super chat tonight. Looks like 599 euros. Thank you so much, European euros. Sherry D, thank you for the donation tonight. And Mary Martins, thank you. I also want to thank Lamba Seuss. This was a good question tonight. I don't know about Sarah Unruh. Sarah and Shock and Her, moderator, thank you so much for gifting the memberships. And thank you, Jay. I think that's Jay, or is that I? I'm not sure. Let me read that again. Yeah, that is Jay. Thank you, Jay. Let me just get the rest of them up. I think I'm almost done. There we go. Brennan and the Two Potted Plants, thank you so much for the super chat tonight. Leah Baker, the regular ICU, thank you. And Bev's Bias Beratements, I love that one. BBB Dictionary Daddy, thank you. Thank you, Dorothy D. And Brennan and the Two Potted Plants. And thank you, Hank's Gaslighting Methodology. And Sandy R. N. Callie. And Shelly Shea, Sylvia. Let me say that again. Shelly Silva, thank you. I got it right the third time. Shelly Silva. And Carrie Johnson, thank you. And Reality Check, I want to thank you as well for making some donations tonight. And Rebel Duck. And I think I thanked Holly Johnson earlier, Glamasus, Holly, Patricia Debro, thank you. And Ann M. And there's also Joanne. Thank you, Joanne Panella. And I think I said this one earlier. Shelly Silva. Allison. I want to thank you, Allison Currington. And the Karma Believer. Thank you so much. Great to see all the super chats coming for both channels tonight. I also want to remind you, please subscribe if you haven't. Hit the like button, follow. Make sure you subscribe to Carl Steinbeck. We got it pinned at the top of the chat tonight. If you're watching on the Young Jerks channel, make sure you follow and subscribe to him on YouTube and Twitter. And if you're following Carl's channel, you can also check us out, the Young Jerks, and subscribe to us. We'd like to see more subscriptions for both channels tonight. I again want to thank Carl Steinbeck for spending the time tonight. I want to thank all of our moderators, all the people watching and sharing and supporting. I'm not sure when the next show is. I definitely got to take tomorrow night off to celebrate my birthday. And then Sunday, which is actually my birthday, I think I may be doing a live show. We'll see. So I think Sunday might be the next live show. We'll see very soon. Thank you so much. And expect more great guests next week. We'll be covering this Karen Reed. You know I'm not going anywhere on this Karen Reed. Be covering this to the end. Shelley came back about the medium, and she says the medium does readings on big cases and says details before they come out. Well, you didn't give me the detail on who they said did it. That's what I want to know. Who did they name? Yes, happy early birthday. I'm going to enjoy it tomorrow night. I'm looking forward to it. So maybe I'll either Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. That's when I'll be live again. You should definitely look for me. You know that we're gonna have some more big shows. We had some great shows this week, and again next week I'm gearing up. It's gonna be a big week. I love what Lisa says. It's playing off what Nan says. Keep showing up. Everyone keep showing up. That's what we all need to do. Just keep showing up. Keep our heads up. And thank you, Lizzie. Fabulous. Oh, thank you so much, Michelle. Arca, yeah, Arca's going to be amazing on Monday. I'm looking forward to that. Oh, here's my friend in Mexico City, life in Mexico City with Jesus Gringo. He said, I'd be watching your videos, but hadn't subscribed. Now I am. Thank you so much. I think that's on the Carl channel. So I think he just subscribed to Carl, which is awesome. All right, going to head out. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you, I think, on Sunday night. Again, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the Young Jerks and Carl Steinbeck right now. And again, Midnight Mass. Let me say that again. www.midnightmassnews.com is our website newsletter. Going to have a lot of Karen Reed stories on there this coming week. So definitely make sure you sub on that as well. Peace out. See you later, guys. Have a great night, ladies.